Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company on MLS ID number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me today in one of his final appearances of the month of May, Philadelphia's number one hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. Charlie, you have some senioritis going on. Are you checked out, or are you ready to get down with some draft lottery preview?
Bill, I am always ready to talk Philadelphia Flyers hockey, and I've also been spending a lot of my time over the last 2 weeks researching draft prospects.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I'm extremely ready to talk draft because that's about all that's in my head right now is like random Russian names of players and scouting reports and shift by shift videos. Yesterday I watched the gold medal game in the under 18s, US Canada. Trevor Connolly basically blew that game for the US by taking a 5-minute major in the third period with the US kind of cruising. They were out shooting Canada like 30-13 going into the third period and looked like they were going to kind of cruise. And then Canada goes and scores 3 goals on a 5-minute major and win the game. So it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch the prospects in real time rather than just watching them on tape on YouTube. But yeah, the U.S. really choked that away. I guess you could in part blame the penalty kill, but also you don't take a 5-minute major, you're not on the penalty kill in the first place.
Sometimes you just gotta take a 5-minute major. No, it's fun. You know, we have the number one team in baseball.
We do.
Right here in the city.
Phillies.
We have the Stanley Cup Playoffs going on, NBA playoffs going on. So what are we going to talk about? The draft lottery, baby.
Draft lottery.
The draft lottery is tomorrow. What's that? May 7th, Tuesday. Allegedly, it's at 6:30. And this I found, like, I've been looking all over for, like, time and TV channel. Do we know any, like, it looks like 6:30.
Well, they usually, I guess.
Is it on ESPN?
It'll be whatever network is broadcasting the main 7 p.m. game. That will be what network they put it on. I mean, like TSN will obviously broadcast, but I guess the Flyers will, or not the Flyers, whether it's TNT or ESPN, they'll pick up that feed because it's obviously Bettman. It's not like they do different ones. Yeah. But they always stretch it out for about a half an hour. They go in reverse order. So you have a pretty good idea. They do like the first 4 or 5 teams and then they go to commercial and then they drag it out. So it'll be like a 15 to 20 minute long thing. I would assume they'll get a little bit of time to do the breakdown of whoever won. But before we go into it, very important thing if you don't realize. So the draft lottery for the Flyers.
7 o'clock game tomorrow is on ESPN. It's game 2, Hurricanes Rangers.
Okay, so it'll be ESPN. But this is an important thing for Flyers fans if you don't realize. I suspect most people do, especially if you're watching this podcast, because you are probably a diehard Flyers fan. But while it would be a very good thing if the Philadelphia Flyers win the lottery, they cannot go up to 1. Because of the way the lottery is set up now, the furthest they can jump up to is number 2. And pretty much, it's basically there's like a very minuscule chance they could jump up to 3, but it is pretty much 2 or you stay where you are.
If another team behind them wins the first drawing,
right,
that they can't move up to 1,
right,
that team would get 2,
right.
And then if the Flyers were to win the second drawing for pick 2,
right,
that's already taken. They'd be pick 3. There's also some world in which they can be pick 4, but I don't understand.
I guess it would be if 2 teams jump them, I guess, but in a certain order.
How would 2? I don't understand it. Whatever. But that's the only.
Yes, but just to be clear,
there's a world in which it happens.
If you are still dreaming on Macklin Celebrini, that's not going to happen.
What if he falls?
Why would he fall?
I don't know. Maybe I frame him for a crime. Maybe I go on a vandalism spree this summer and just leave Macklin Celebrini's DNA everywhere. How do I get it? I don't know. Did he ever do 23andMe?
I do not think. Here's the thing in that situation. Even if Macklin Celebrini, even if at the combine he stumbles and breaks his leg, he is still going number 1. Because the only scenario where he doesn't go number 1 is if, as you kind of imply, they dig up that he's actually a Nazi or like something like that. But in that case, but in that case, he ain't going 2 either.
That's why
that's the thing. Like, there's no way he's either going 1 or like he won't be drafted, because even if he were to get injured, he would still go 1 because he's so much better than everyone else. So that they would still just deal with the injury risk and take him 1 anyway.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure that's probably that's why we need to frame him of something. And I would let Jonesy know
that it's fake.
This is fake. These social media posts, this rampant vandalism, whatever it is. Actually, it's been me the whole time. You're welcome. Right. I'll take that job in hockey ops whenever you're ready.
There we go.
Yeah. Anyway, so in the spirit of the draft lottery, I decided, let's run our own here. I want to run a little tankathon simulator, see if I can get the Flyers this number 2 pick. Right now, they're slated to pick 12th. And Bryn, if you would, let's see what we can do.
Still 12.
Still 12. All right. We're going to come back and try this again a little later.
Hey, at least, like, I know it's unlikely, and it wouldn't kill them, because I do think that the way this tier, the first tier is obviously Celebrity. He's in a tier of his own. He's number 1. The next tier, in my mind, based on generally accepted views of the players and also my evaluations thus far, the next tier is basically 2 to 13. You could argue it's 2 to 14, I think, if you believe that the character concerns surrounding Connolly don't matter, because I think from a talent standpoint, he's very much with these guys. He just is a serious characterist to the point where I would not take the risk taking him 12 or 13. But the Flyers could theoretically drop to 13. That is possible. It's unlikely, but it's possible. But even if they drop to 13, they're going to have the chance of getting one of these guys in tier 2. We have centers, we have wingers, we have left-handed shooting defensemen, we have right-handed shooting defensemen. We have a lot of legitimately really exciting players. Now, obviously, I have certain guys I like more than others, but let me put it this way. If they get any of these guys in tier 2, there's no one on that list that I actively dislike. They are all guys who I think plausibly could become top of the lineup players at the NHL level. I would be excited to add any of those guys to the Flyers pipeline.
That's, I was looking at the, just cruising through elite prospects, and I just opened up the consolidated ranking of their top 32. So it's like a, conglomeration of all the different rankings that they have. And some interesting names are like right around that 12th area. Like they have TJ Ginla at 13, Cole Yzerman at 14. Like that's
the thing with TJ Ginla is that his stock is going up.
He's one of the guys who but it might be one of the players that pushes Yzerman down.
Could be. Yzerman's stock is definitely going down. I thought he was fine. Especially in the second half of the gold medal game yesterday. He scores a goal in the third period. I thought he was good. He's certainly not a guy I would be worried about taking, but I understand why he's falling. He is inconsistent and a bit one-dimensional right now. One of the reasons why I actually like him as a prospect is because I think he does have further upside. He's actually quite young for his draft year, and the things that he's not that great at, he shows flashes of being great at them. It's not like he can't. It's just that he doesn't. And in theory, if you are young for your draft year and you just aren't a great passer all the time, but man, you show flashes sometimes, or you're not awful defensively all the time, you're just awful sometimes, presumably you could get better. So I would be fine with Cole Yzerman. TJ Ginla, though, he had a really impressive second half. He carried that over into the under 18s. I thought a really good game in the gold medal game. Not amazing, but he scores a goal. He sets up. He was actually the guy who kicked off the Canada comeback. He has a really good pass to set up their first goal on the power play, and then he scores their third goal on that 5-on-4 5-minute major. And I just get the sense that Ginla is a guy who, number one, it's starting to click for him. This was a big breakout year for him as a prospect, but also even as the year progressed, it started to click for him more. The big thing with Ginla is, do you really think Calgary is going to let him pass by them? Like, would they have the guts to pass on one of their legends, his son? Would they actually do it?
It might be a legitimate top 10 pick. Like, it's not as if it's a stretch,
It's not a reach.
This could really work out for you.
Yeah, it's not a reach. And then you have, I mean, if anything, I would honestly maybe feel a little bit bad for Iginla because the amount of pressure on him, it's kind of the same idea with the Eagles taking Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Like, they got him in the 5th round. It was actually a really good value pick, so I loved it. And I think it's a cool story. But I do worry that Eagles fans are going to be convinced that this guy is going to be like the savior at linebacker when it's like, dude, 5th-round picks sometimes don't even make the team.
No, I saw they put 54 on him, and I was like, that's got to be really cool. But also, like, I feel like that's setting up like, there's a lot of 54 jerseys already out there, man. Like, people have this jersey, so it's cool for them, too. It's just like, it seems like a lot of pressure.
I just remember
ton of pressure.
The guy I remember, another 5th-round pick, and I know we're talking about football, but remember when the Eagles...
The wrong Matthews brother?
No, let me finish, Bill. Remember when the Eagles took C.J. Gaddis in the 5th round? This was years ago. He was supposed to be the next Dawkins because he was a safety who went to Clemson. Where Dawkins went. And it was like, oh my God, they got the next Dawkins. And everybody was so pumped. And he didn't even make it out of camp.
There was a couple of years ago, they drafted a dude because he was Dawk's son's roommate. He was going to be the next Dawkins.
Next Dawkins.
Yeah.
So with TJ Ginla, I think it's unlikely he makes it past 9, or I guess in theory, Calgary could win the lottery too. And then they could end up drafting 1 or 2 or whatever. But assuming they stay where they are, I find it highly unlikely that they would have the guts to not pick Jerome Iginla's son. But hey, you never know. And I do like Iginla. I wouldn't take Iginla at 2. Like, if the Flyers jump up in the lottery, I wouldn't take him at 2. But if he slips to 12, take him in a heartbeat. He's a really good player.
That brings us to our mailbag question of the day from SG Bunch of Numbers. Always get great questions from him. Very simple. If the Flyers win the draft lottery, who should they take with the 2nd pick? Charlie, you've been doing this. You've been doing this research. I've been reading some different mock drafts and stuff. It looks like the pretty much consensus number 2. It's kind of funny. It's Demidov.
Yeah. So
is that who? Like, is he?
So here's
is he the absolute definite number 2?
Okay. So here's my thing. I actually,
Demidov, I guess
it's Demidov. I would be very surprised if Demidov actually goes number 2, because he is exactly the type of player that people like us love. But I think, like, I am convinced the defenseman's probably going to go 2, because this is the NHL. And there's the Russia factor. And there's the fact that Demidov has the same scouting concern that Mitchkov did. Because it wasn't just the Russia factor that had Mitchkov slip. Even if there was no geopolitical mess in Russia or whatever, I don't know if Mitchkov would have went 2. I think he very well might have went behind Fantilli and Carlson. I think he would have went 4. Probably 4. I think he would have went over Will Smith. But I am uncertain that he would have went 2 or 3, because there's always scouts, understandably, worry about guys who aren't that big and also aren't elite skaters. And Mitchkov, that's Mitchkov. I'm not saying Mitchkov's a bad skater, but he's not a burner, and he's kind of small. Demidov is the same thing. He's not huge, and he's not a burner. He's very, very good on his edges, but he's not an elite skater. And those guys tend not to go number 2. So I think there's a good chance Demidov might end up as the number 2 on a lot of public boards. I would be surprised. I think he'll go in the top 5 or 6, but I would be surprised if he goes 2. Now, to answer the question, though, Demidov is my guy. I am not done doing all my tape study, but he is a really exciting prospect. And I watch him and I see a guy out of everybody who I think has the best chance of being a superstar. Like Celebrini is going to be. I would be shocked if he's not. Mm-hmm. He just checks so many boxes. He does so many things well. He kind of, you watch him play and he's sort of reminiscent of like a running back, where he kind of like jukes players. Like he attacks the middle of the ice so well. Like he's gonna roll. Celebrini's awesome. Demidov is really exciting to me, and he would be my ideal choice at 2 if the Flyers take him. The thing that I love about Demidov in theory. And again, I don't want to get everybody too excited because they're probably not going to win the lottery. And if they do win the lottery, there's also a pretty good chance they don't take Demidov. But what excites me about Demidov is I think Michkov and Demidov styles aren't totally dissimilar, which makes sense. I mean, they're coming from the same country. There's a certain way that guys develop and things that got prioritized in the developmental process in certain countries. So it doesn't shock me that their games aren't completely dissimilar. But I think the key difference is that Michkov, and we talked about this last week, Michkov, he can pass. He's got great vision. He's got great hands. He's got all that stuff. But at his core, he wants to score goals. Demidov he can score goals. He's got a good shot. He's got great hockey sense. He can put himself in places to score. But at his core, he's a playmaker. And the idea of putting, Michkov on the right, Demidov on the left, stick them on the same line, and let Demidov feed Michkov for 50 goals a year for the next decade, it's extremely attractive to me. So Demidov is my preference right now at number 2 if the Flyers were to jump up in the lottery.
I always think, even if there's all these good defensemen, if it's like there's one guy though who has legit superstar potential, and even if he's a Russian winger, it's like, well, we're kind of set at right wing and we're already waiting on one high-end Russian guy. Like, do we need to double down on this? My answer to that is yes. Always take the guy with the star potential. And I always think of, did Tampa Bay need Jonathan Drouin? Probably not. And did Jonathan Drouin work out? No. But since he had that superstar pedigree going back to when he was drafted, you got something you really needed for him when it was time to move a prospect for a right now player. And that's what they did with Sergachev. So that's that. But say the Flyers, we know they might be focusing a little bit on defensemen in this draft. They think centers are next year. Like, if they want to draft their center, it's next season probably. Fair. So let's say they go for a defenseman. Who at 2? Well, we're looking at this in the world where the 5% chance comes through, and the Flyers pick second in this draft. Is there one defenseman who really stands out to you?
Well, so to me, yes, there is one guy I like more than the others. I don't know if that's the guy who they will take. It seems like scouts really, really love Levshinov. He's the guy who plays for Michigan State. Put up really good numbers at Michigan State, 35 points in 38 games as a defenseman, as a freshman in his draft year. And I get it.
This guy, a Belarusian NCAA player?
Yeah, he came over.
This is insane.
Yeah, I get it. He's big. He's big. He's aggressive. He can skate well. He's just constantly activating. So I get it. I think he's a guy who you watch and you can dream on. I personally would not take him. My favorite defenseman in this draft is Zeev Buium, who is the Denver guy, the guy who was one of the, if not the best player on the Denver team that just won the national championship, that upset the 2 Boston teams. I see a guy who, I don't know if there's anything he's bad at. You watch tape on him, and like I watch tape on Levshinov, and I see a guy who is raw and needs a lot of work. And I'm not saying Buium doesn't need work, because all these guys need some work, but it's really hard for me to pick out any flaws in Buium's game. And he's maybe not the best technical skater, but he's still a good skater. He doesn't the skating doesn't look great, but he's quick. He's got the playmaking ability. I really like Buium. So if I were the Flyers, I would take him, knowing Jonesy's love of size, especially on the back end. Guys like Levshinov and then Saleyev. I would suspect that those 2 guys would be higher in their estimation than Buium. But for me, I think Buium is the best defenseman in this draft.
Saleyev is obviously, I don't know, you just told me about a Belarusian kid playing in the NCAA, and I kind of love that. But Anton Saleyev is 6'7", 207. He turned 18 on April 11th. This is a young guy, and he is freaking gantic.
He's huge. You can like the upside is enormous with him. It's just that like he might not hit it. I look, if the Flyers ended up with Saleyev, I would be perfectly fine, because number 1, upside's huge. Number 2, they actually have a coach in Brad Shaw who I would trust to develop him properly. It's just like I watch Booyam and I see a guy who, not necessarily a finished product, but I don't have to dream on him. He's already freaking awesome. Whereas guys like Levshunov and Saleyev, you have to envision what they could become rather than be like, yo, this guy's already awesome.
No, he just had 50 points in 42 games as a freshman and led his team to a national title.
Yeah.
He's already real good.
Yeah.
It's not a projection. It's like if he just continues on this path, he's awesome.
So he's my favorite of the defensemen. But again, my viewpoint with this top tier is that
it's basically all
none of these guys I would be mad about. Truthfully, I mean, I'm not super duper high on Levshunov. I don't fully buy into the decision making, but I love the physical tools, and I think you could mold him into a number one. Absolutely. Saleyev, same thing. I don't think he's there yet. I think he is a guy where he's not going to be what he's going to be, what he's going to ultimately become for another 3-4 years. But what he could ultimately become could be the Russian Victor Hedman, which is fucking awesome.
I saw Chara play in the AHL, and it took him a while, man. I saw him get laid the fuck out Lindros style by John Druce because, listen, when you're that big, sometimes you skate with your head down. The puck's real far away. You need to find it. It takes a while, especially for dudes that big. That's what we were told about Sam Moran for so long. It's just oh, man, if it's true, though, if it comes true,
real.
We have a monster. We have a dude who eats people. I want that so bad. But we'll see how it all works out.
I think
chances are they're picking 12th.
Chances are. The two guys who I am the most iffy on, and again, I don't dislike them, but they're the two guys that I'm probably the lowest on out of that tier. First guy, it has less to do with him, and it more has to do with the Flyers and their mix. It's not that I don't like Zane Parekh. I do. I think he's an unbelievably talented player with the puck, and he absolutely has star potential. It's just they kind of already have a guy like that in Drysdale, who's already a right hand. Parekh would be Drysdale, except they already have Drysdale. Now, maybe he's a better Drysdale, but I don't know if you need two of them. I'm just iffy on whether that's a good use of resources to get another smallish right-handed shooting defenseman who will need to play the same role if he hits that Drysdale presumably will play if he hits. So a little iffy on that pick just in terms of allocation of resources. And the other guy, who again, I also like, is Konsta Helenius. And his big thing, on some level, as a center, Flyers need a center. If he slips a 12, I'm not going to be crying. I don't know if I see star potential in him. I watch him, and I'll go into this a little bit more, later in the month when I start doing these videos. I watch Helenius, and I see this is I like him. I like watching him play. I see Joel Farabee if Joel Farabee could play center, and that's good. He'll be a darn good player.
Well, that's good.
I just don't know if I want center version of Joel Farabee when you could potentially get guy who could be an 80, 90 point player. You know what I mean? I don't know if he has the ceiling for me to want, given what the Flyers need, which is high-end talent. I don't know if I see him as truly high-end. I see him as really good, and
solid.
I will really enjoy watching him play if he becomes a Philadelphia Flyer. Maybe he becomes a Couturier-esque 1C in terms of impact. I'd like to see them take a little bit of a bigger swing, and I'm not sure Helenius has the kind of upside that makes me want to give him a go. But if he's there, I don't dislike him. It's just I don't know if his upside matches. I have concerns about Caden Lidstrom, but I think his upside is significantly higher than Helenius is. So even if I might enjoy watching Helenius more now, I watch Lidstrom and I'm if he hits, shit. He could be a legitimate star level 1C. I don't know if I see a star level 1C in Konsta Helenius.
Caden Lindstrom, that's an A-tier hockey name right there. That's a great, NHL
it's a great
franchise simulator.
Yeah.
And the thing about Zane Parekh, though, if he's another Drysdale, you can always use one of those guys to get you a potential 40-goal scoring prospect.
That's a fair point.
You can always. Listen, before we go any further, I want to take a minute to tell you about our friends at Mortgage CS, an independent mortgage broker based right here in Philly. What this means is they won't steer you to just one mortgage option or to what's best for them. They work for you. not the banks. This is incredibly important because today's real estate market is ultra competitive. Prospective home buyers, perhaps just like you, are missing out on opportunities to win the perfect home because they don't have Mortgage CS in their corner. The mortgage company you choose matters more than ever. Even if you are already in the market, you can still explore your options with Mortgage CS. And if you do, you may be shocked at how much money you can save. Ben and Alec at Mortgage CS will ensure you have a rock-solid pre-approval, and they'll take the time to explore anything you want. That's why Mortgage CS is the mortgage concierge service. The real estate market is competitive, so you can rely on Mortgage CS to help you understand when you can be flexible in your offer to buy a home without taking on unnecessary risks. There's a reason people win more with Mortgage CS, so call or text Ben now at 267-391-7425 and see for yourself. You can also go to mortgagecs.com/PHLY to check them out or view their 370-plus perfect 5-star reviews by searching Mortgage CS right now. I've read you their reviews. It's no BS. I've tried to sort by like not 5-star. They don't exist. It's literally just all these 5-star reviews. You find them, and it's because, listen, they're the mortgage concierge service. They're here. It's all about the customer service. This advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company on MLS ID number 1464766. 766. Visit mortgagecs.com for more information. Before we go any further, Bryn, run me another simulator. I got to get us to 2. Somehow, before the end of this show, we're getting to 2, Charlie. All right. Not
still
quite.
a 12.
Not quite.
Here's my question. What's going to happen first? Are you going to get us to 2 or are we going to get to 13?
We're going to end the show with them picking 14 is exactly what's going to happen.
We got a quick super chat.
We have a super chat
from Timbo Slice. Hey guys, love y'all. Love you too, Timbo.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Thank
Tim.
you very much.
Great name. No, I like a day like today, and the lottery isn't until tomorrow, but you can always sell 2 things to a fan base: winning and hope. And the draft lottery, what is that? It's literally the lottery. It's the idea of hope. Like the conversation we just had about what would you do it to is the equivalent of, yo man, what would you buy if you hit the Powerball? Like, that's literally what it is. And that's this time of year, what else can you have other than hope, especially while you're watching these Stanley Cup playoffs and you just see these teams and you're like, oh my God, the Flyers had, compared to the last few years, really like 3 seasons, they had a fucking awesome year. You watch these playoffs and it's like, yeah, might be a while.
I agree.
I don't even mean that negative.
I agree with that, but I don't like. I always have people in my mentions. Always. This has been the case for the last 6 years, with maybe the only exception of the 2019-2020 season. And even then, I had angry people being like, "Oh, we're in the conference final, and like, fuck, these teams are so much better than the Flyers." Like, the Islanders still suck, dude. But anyway, I know they beat the Flyers, but
sometimes teams get lucky. We'll talk about that later.
But I do think that look, I 100% agree the Flyers need more high-end talent. We've been saying this forever. Teams do play more with more energy and with more pace. Like, if the Flyers were in the playoffs, unless they were just so totally overmatched, I don't think they would have been. They would have looked better in terms of playing playoff-style hockey than they did in the regular season because you just get pulled into the fight. Like, playoff-style hockey is a different game than the regular season. So, like, yes, if you are comparing the Flyers in the regular season to any team in the playoffs, you're going to be like, oh, man, the gap is enormous. And it's large. But, like, if you compare Nashville in the regular season to Nashville in the playoffs looks like a better team than they did in the regular season because everybody does, unless you just completely flop and lose in 4 games and get killed like the Capitals.
Oh, yeah. It's not even like the playoff hockey is more entertaining.
Yeah.
Like the Islanders are more entertaining in the playoffs than they are in the regular season just because that's hockey.
So, like, don't necessarily. I don't love the, like, man, this just shows how far the like it does, but not to the degree that you think.
It's not even that. It's just like it's more to just the impact of the high-end talent. Like, I watched in Game 7, just Noah Hannafin, like, And nothing really came of it. Like, there was almost a chance, but he just makes a move at the top of the zone, skates in, nothing there, curls back, and then comes back on the other side and feeds the puck across for like what could have been a scoring chance. And it was like, we don't have a defenseman who can do that. Like, and he's not even their number one.
Even Sanheim could.
I guess.
I don't think Sanheim is significantly worse than Noah Hannafin. I put them around the same level.
Really?
Yeah. But I've never been super high on Noah Hannafin.
No, I wouldn't
even
say
dating back to his draft year. I think he's fine. I think he's in that 2-3 range for me.
Okay.
If he's your number one, you're a bad team. If he's your number 2 and number 3, you're probably a good team, which he is because they have Shea Theodore and Alex Pietrangelo.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't even say significantly, but I just think Sanheim could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not, though. I'm saying, if he tried it 5 times, it might work once. And, it just looked so smooth. And, he thought he was going to set up this one-timer across the ice. And it was kind of a surprise he didn't. And, this is just one thing that I picked out and was like, yeah, we need a little bit more of that, man.
They do.
But, that's we know what they need.
And in theory, again, I know you're not, super high on the moment. Jamie Drysdale has the talent to make plays like that. Now, whether they get him to that point, who knows? But he could. Those are the plays he made regularly in juniors.
I have not given up at all on Jamie Drysdale. Do I think he's going to be a Norris-level defenseman? No. Does that mean he can't win a Stanley Cup playing on the top pair? It doesn't mean that. He very well could. Noah Hannafin just played first pair minutes for the Vegas Golden Knights. They had as much of a chance to win the Stanley Cup as anyone in these playoffs.
So before we go to the playoffs, one Bob McKenzie just released his top 15 for draft rankings. This is obviously early. There will be a more comprehensive one that comes out close to the draft. But McKenzie's draft ranking is always important because if you look at Corey Pronman and Scott Wheeler and Peters and everybody, they're all great. Respect the hell out of them. But they are evaluating their opinion of these guys' talents. What makes McKenzie's list the most interesting is he's soliciting the opinions of the scouts and the management, people in the organizations. So his list is usually less about who does Corey think is the best? Who does Scott think is the best? Who does Chris think is the best? It's more about where is this guy likely to be drafted? Because he's going by what he's hearing from scouts. So that top 15, always interesting to look at. I have no idea what it's going to look like. So let me just run through it. Macklin Celebrini 1. Demidov number 2. That's interesting. Was not necessarily expecting that. Saleyev 3. I do not think Saleyev will last past the top 5. I just don't. I think someone is going to.
The game has changed, but it hasn't changed so much that someone's going to look at a 6'7" defenseman and go, "Oh yeah, I don't know if I want that."
I'm surprised though that Demidov is 2. I thought it would be a defenseman at 2, so that's interesting. Maybe Demidov will go 2. Saleyev is 3. 4 is Levshinov, which again makes sense. I kind of thought Levshinov might be 2, but I get Saleyev being over him, and I guess teams are maybe feeling a little bit better about drafting Russians, and that's helping Demidov. Caden Lidstrom 5. That makes sense. He's big. He's a center. He's physical. There's some concerns about injuries. There's some concerns about hockey sense, but you can dream on his upside. That makes sense to me, him being 5. 6 is Sam Dickinson. This is Oliver Bonk's teammate. Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey's teammate. I like Dickinson a lot, and I cannot imagine a scenario where he slips out of the top 10. He's a big defenseman who has an extremely high floor, and you could, if things break right in his development, you can see him turning into a 1. I mean, he's just one of those classic, there's no way he's busting. Saleyev could actually bust. He could be Tyler Myers and just kind of stink and be in the league forever because he's huge. Dickinson, worst case scenario, he's going to be a second pair guy, and he could also be a 1. So I get him at 6. 7, Zane Parekh. Okay. Makes sense. 90-point offensive defenseman who's also a right shot. Logical. Number 8, Zeev Buya, my guy. Okay, so I like that he's at 8. Maybe he slips. That'd be cool. He's one of my boys. 9, Hellenius. Okay, so again, center. I don't necessarily see super high-end upside, but love the hockey IQ. Obviously, he can play center. He's playing it in Finland in a pro league. Number 10, Tija Ginla. Again, Calgary's projected to probably pick at 9. It's right in that range where he should be. 11, Berkeley Catton. I like this because Berkeley Catton. So my main three guys after Celebrini are Demidov, Catton, and Bouillon. Catton's at 11. You might be there. That's intriguing. 12, Carter Yakimchuk. It's a fucking great name.
That might be the number
great
one
name. Yakimchuk's fun, man. Like I don't know out of all the tape I've watched over the last week, I don't know if there's a player I've had more fun watching than Yakimchuk. He's big. He's mean. He takes too many penalties. He's really, really good with dangles. Like he plays kind of like a 6'3" power forward who just happens to play defense. He's raw. He's got a lot that he needs to work on in terms of defense, in terms of cleaning up the things with skating. But he's a guy where, like, if he hits, man, he could be a real flyer type player in the good way. I like, and Yakimchuk is a friggin' awesome hockey name.
Yakimchuk is like a character straight out of Slapshot.
Yeah.
Doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
His best friend is a moose.
So Yakimchuk's at 12, so that's where the Flyers would pick. I'd have no problem with Yakimchuk. 13, Cole Yzerman.
The Yzer plan, baby.
Yzerman drops to 13. This is right where the tier ends. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Beckett and Connolly. Connolly at 15. Okay, so then there's your 15. So I'm happy with this because this puts the Flyers in position where Berkeley Catton's one of my top three guys after Celebrini. Yakimchuk, I think, is a lot of fun. And while, like, Yakimchuk is a little bit like Saleyev, where, like, you have to dream on him, but all of the things he's bad at, he's not bad at all the time. So you could be like, hey, if you can get that out of him all the time, he could be a 1 because he has incredible puck skills and he's huge and he's physical. He's fun. I have no problem with Yakimchuk. And then Yzerman also would be very interesting. Get that goal scorer that you lost when Cutter Gauthier decided he hated you.
That'd be nice. Before we go any further, I got to talk to you about Game Time because Game Time is the place for last-minute MLB ticket deals. You know about the killer last-minute deals. You get the all-in pricing. See what it's going to cost before you even, maybe get to that checkout. And, oh, man, I'm going. Oh, it's $10, $20, $30 more than I expected. No, you get the full price with all-in pricing. You get the seat view to know exactly what you're going to be seeing. And you get the lowest price guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time refunds you 110% of the difference. So Game Time, well, they just take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And we're not that far away now. It's almost 1:45.
Yeah, it's a 4 p.m. start, right?
Phillies are at 4 today. If you can't tell, I might be on my way. Maybe you haven't decided yet.
Hey, it's only cloudy today. It's not raining.
If you want to hold out, say, right up until first pitch, you can save up to 60% by waiting to the last minute with Game Time. It's one hell of an offer, man. That's all I'm telling you. If you want to go last minute, go with Game Time. And the flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It's just so funny to me that every day I'm like, man, I wonder if we have enough for today. And now it's 1/4 of.
I love it.
And we've done the first topic.
Yeah.
Before we move on to topic 2, give me a simulation, Bryn.
Here we go.
Let's go. This is the one. I'm feeling it. Affiliate?
Still 12.
Still at 12. All right.
This one was Calgary. Calgary up to 1. I mean, I do not think they would take Tisha Getlover back to Celebrini.
They're probably Calgary fans that are like, that's the worst case scenario.
Right, yeah.
But I guess if the worst case scenario is Mac on Celebrini, you're in a pretty good spot.
It's pretty good. I think they'd be okay with that.
Let's talk a little bit about the playoffs. The most important thing, Charlie.
What's up?
Based on all the podcasts I listened to this morning, The playoffs are actually over because the Leafs are out. The Leafs will not be Stanley Cup champions, which means there might not be a Stanley Cup.
I thought you were going to say the most important thing, because this is the most important thing for me, is that I've been talking up the Dallas Stars since February, and if they would have lost in the first round, I would have gotten enormous amounts of shit.
Of course. Yeah.
Now,
it doesn't matter that they played Vegas.
No, it would have been like, oh, yeah, you know hockey. At least now, if they lose to Colorado in the second round, it's a disappointment, but it's like, okay, it's Colorado, and they won a round. They beat the defending champs. They proved that they're really good. So I feel much better about my Dallas pick now that they survived the first round and legitimately out, even though that series went 7, great series, like the Stars were the better team. They deserve to win that series.
Yeah, and it's funny. Friedman on 32 Thoughts this morning said that if Dallas were to go on and win the Cup, it might be one of the all-time great runs.
It might be the toughest run ever.
Vegas, Colorado,
maybe Edmonton.
The last 2 champs.
Yeah, then maybe
Edmonton, Vancouver, and then in all likelihood, Panthers, Rangers, or Canes.
Yeah.
Like that's one hell of a run.
The wild part about that, like, I don't care who it is out of the East. Like, the Cup final might be the easiest of the 4 matchups.
I was going to say the Western final, depending on what it is.
I mean, if it's Vancouver, but if it's Edmonton and you got to shut down McDavid, like if they were to go Vegas, Colorado, Edmonton, and then play like the Rangers. I don't think the Rangers are better than any of those 3 teams, despite the fact they won the President's Trophy.
I'm just looking at it right now, and I'm thinking it's going to be the Panthers. So I'm like, the defending Eastern Conference champs who got back and are better than last year. Like, they're healthier, and probably they've just improved. Yeah. Like, it would be an incredible run.
Sam Reinert's in God mode this year. He was just a really good player the year before.
It would be an incredible run.
Sure would.
For them, no matter who they beat.
They're really good, man.
The West is so good.
Like, but I mean, Dallas, like shit. It's just, there's a little bit with them, especially now that Ottinger's playing well again. Because that was the big concern in the second half, was just that, are they going to blow this because Ottinger just isn't Ottinger? And he was great in this series for the most part. He was good down the stretch. So it looks like he's figured it out. But I mean, you just look at them, like there's a little bit of like Anaheim with Perry and Getzlaf on entry-level deals where they got Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven, like on entry-level deals. Thomas Hartley's like this team is not going to be able to stay together. Like Matt Duchene's going to get big money from somebody because he's completely rehabilitated his value. They have so much surplus value on their books right now just because they've been run so well that like it's honestly kind of bonkers how much talent they've been able to, like, I'm going to pull up Cap Friendly right now and just take a quick look at the guys. Like, yeah, they're overpaying Sagan and Benn, sure. So that cuts into it a bit. But you got, like, Duchene making $3. He's playing like a $7 or $8 million a year guy. You got Wyatt Johnson under $1 million. You got Stankoven under $1 million. You got Hartley under $1 million. Like, the amount of surplus value, like, I forget who posted it today, but it might have been Dmitry Filipovich, friend of the pod, great guy, who posted that like Wyatt Johnston finished the series with like 30 scoring chances and the next best guy on the Stars had like 18. Like, and this is a guy on an entry-level contract.
Who's actually cheating the system more? Is it Vegas with the guys they're actually paying, or Dallas with the guys they don't have to pay yet? It's a question you want to ask yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, it is funny, though, to look at the Stars and, like, going into the playoffs. It's like, well, what could sink them? Jake Ottinger. Yeah. If he's not what he was last year. And it's like their potential Achilles heel is a dude who finished 5th in Vezina voting a year ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
The reason why we don't think, and again, they very well could lose to Colorado because Colorado is a great team too.
Awesome.
But the reason why people don't think of the Stars as this absolutely loaded team, it's only because they haven't won yet. Because if you really drill down their roster, you are like, holy shit, these guys are freaking awesome.
And like we say all the time with the awards, like the awards are always like 2 years behind. Like the Selke winner is the dude who's deserved it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They're a very young team.
Yeah.
Like they have a lot of young dudes. We just haven't caught up to how good they are yet.
Like I've heard some people, and again, I think this is mostly because they don't watch the Stars regularly and they just don't follow them because they're not one of those premier teams. They don't get a ton of media attention in the same way that obviously like the Oilers do, but even a team like Colorado because they won some titles and McKinnon is a superstar. Like I've had some people tell me like, well, do the Stars really have superstars? And it's like, in my mind, Miro Heiskanen is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL, full stop. And like, that might be underselling him. He's really that good. Jason Robertson scored 100 points last year, and this year had the best defensive metrics of any forward in hockey. Like, those two guys right off the bat are superstars. You might not think they're superstars. They're superstars. The only reason why they're not universally viewed as superstars because they haven't won a cup, and because Robertson wasn't a first-round pick, so he doesn't have the same hype as the guys we view as stars. But he's really that good. Rupe Hintz is like Sean Couturier if Sean Couturier could skate. Seriously, like that is Hintz.
Fuck. No, this is hockey, right? Okay. No, I just look at that 2017 draft and you just go like, man, the thing that should have made like the crowning achievement of Hextall, you just look at it and go, we're like right there for every, like, they're within a couple of picks of everything.
That spot, Well, and I had someone, and I actually laughed out loud because like this person on Twitter wasn't wrong, but it was just very funny because I was drinking on Friday night on my couch watching the hockey games, and I like buzz tweeted like the trios. You know, you have Heiskanen, you have Ottinger, you have Robertson, then you have the Flyers with Patrick, Frost, and Ratcliffe, and someone like very like resigningly responded, well, Morgan Frost is good. And it's like, you're right. You're right. He is a good player. But if that's the guy
that's the one.
Like, that's the one you're pointing to out of that haul.
The guy who the people running the NHL network thought wasn't being drafted and put out Eli Tolvanen's name. Actually, he's the crown jewel of this thing. It's just like, man, was winning that lottery the worst thing that ever happened to Ron Hextall? Like, it's up there.
I mean, if they wouldn't have moved up, and I have no idea if they would have taken him. The guy who I was really into was Eli Tolvanen. I was really into. I also really like Nick Suzuki, and like Nick Suzuki is not a superstar. I mean, it'd be great to have him instead of whatever Nolan Patrick turned into.
I can't talk because I really liked Isaac Ratcliffe at 13 before they won the lottery. So,
but
again, I pick players based on their name and their size. That's mostly how
he was big.
Yeah,
he was big.
He was a big guy.
Yep,
he just couldn't play.
Yeah, not really.
Let's talk about Olipop. Olipop is the world's first functional soda with a classic soda taste and the benefits of plant-based fiber, prebiotics, and other botanical ingredients to support gut health. Olipop is a new kind of soda with only 2 to 5 grams of sugar in every can and 9 grams of fiber per can. I want you, if you're drinking a soft drink right now or next time you have one in your hand, just turn it around and look at how much sugar's in there. It's a staggering amount. Just absolutely baffling. Olipop, 2 to 5 grams of sugar in every can. Not too shabby. 2 out of every 3 Americans say they suffer from digestive issues. 95% of Americans don't get the daily recommended amount of fiber. Olipop is tackling both these issues with a drink that tastes just like soda. I had one just earlier today when I was eating my nice Primo hoagie that Gargano was so nice to supply for us. I enjoyed a nice cherry cola from Olipop. It was quite delicious. Prebiotic fiber is the food source of the beneficial probiotic bacteria in your gut, and Olipop has 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can that can help support your digestive health. Olipop is available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including as well as online at drinkolipop.com. And now you can get it at Wawa. That's right. You can get Olipop at Wawa. 2 flavors available there, the root beer and the strawberry vanilla. I've told you a few times. Strawberry vanilla and some tequila. It's called the Chaos Agent. It won't let you down. So use code PHLY20 for 20% off your next order of Olipop at drinkolipop.com. This discount only applies to one-time orders, not to subscriptions. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com as well as Amazon and available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and Go Puff.
Personally,
drinkolipop.com.
Personally partial to the orange squeeze.
The orange squeeze is pretty good.
Liking that one.
It's I'm not a big fan of orange soda, but it's not
I
like
am generally a big fan of orange soda.
It was a little different than like your typical orange soda. Yeah,
as I said when we were talking about it, it's juicy, and like by juicy I don't mean like juicy fruit, like it's explosion of flavor. Like it just tastes like juice a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more than soda.
Pretty freaking good. So we talk about Dallas. They knocked out Vegas in 7, and for their trouble now they get the Avs. Yeah, just the last 2 cup champs. No big deal. The Leafs out, man, is the funniest shit. Like, feel bad for them. I really do. But it's entertaining as hell.
It is
like,
fun.
It is really funny.
It's very funny.
Like, it is, you would think like the prime minister died based on like a bunch of podcasts I listened to today. Like, the Leafs really are. The Leafs must, like, Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, it must account for like 50% of their economy. It's really kind of hilarious.
I mean, probably.
They lose Game 7 in overtime, and it's like, well, time to make major changes. Like, really? Like, if you score a goal, is it time to make major?
No, but that's hockey. And it's also hockey in Toronto.
And it's also like the point they're at with just where their contracts are. Like, you have two guys who are up in a year, and they're two guys making like $11 million. So it's, well, where do we go from here? I guess this is the time to make the changes. I just wonder with the Leafs, like, what if you just run it back? Like, 1 year, like, what if you just have the same team 2 years? It's very much like basketball. Like, it was fucking hilarious that James Harden said it the other day, because it's like the best setup ever for the hot dog costume. We're looking for the guy who did
yeah,
this.
I did see you tweet that.
He's like, you know, you got to keep this. You look at Denver, and they've been together like 7 years. It's really about, you know, building that chemistry. And it's, well, you've been on 4 teams in the last 4 years. I feel like you're kind of the reason for this, you know? But I look at the Leafs, and it's, all right, well, we have to change the chemistry. We have to do that. Like, keep these 4 guys together, and then like try to get a defenseman somehow, and then hope your goalies don't get hurt.
And I do wonder if that's ultimately what they're going to do. Because right now, obviously, everyone is in, you got to blow it up, you keep failing. But I do wonder if cooler heads will ultimately prevail, as they have the last 5 years this has happened. And ultimately they decide, no, we should run it back. Mitch Marner, like, will probably resign because he grew up in Toronto, and, you know, his dad may lock him in the shed if he doesn't re-sign with the Leafs. I don't know. I've heard his dad's a nightmare. But anyway, to me, like, and I'm not absolving the Leafs stars. If they decided to shake it up a bit, I don't think that is an unjustifiable decision. But I look at the Leafs, and I see a team that has one very obvious flaw. They have a bunch of defensemen that aren't named Morgan Riley that can't move the puck. Like, they've built a defense. It's like, I don't understand what the logic was of, like, buying a Ferrari and then putting like a 6-cylinder engine in it. like what are you doing?
We need to get the puck to those guys.
Get the puck to the guys who do the goal scoring.
Yeah.
Like, instead the biggest mistake I really think, and hockey men will never acknowledge this because they think that if anything, Dubas screwed up going the other way. The biggest mistake Kyle Dubas made was not going all in on being an offense-oriented team. What he would always do was he would always, at the deadline, he would go trade a first-round pick for Nick Foligno, because it's like, no, we need that playoff toughness. Like, no, like, and you need to lean into what you're good at. And I'm not saying that you don't, like, having a couple physical guys isn't important. But I look at their defense now, like Joel Edmondson, Lyubushkin, like, I know they gave a shot to Giordano, but not Giordano, Klingberg. That just didn't work out. He was hurt. He wasn't very good. I don't think that was the greatest decision anyway, because he's been bad for the last 2-3 years. So, like, not the best risk. So, but they tried, I guess. Like, to me, I see a team that can't get the puck to their stars enough out of the defensive zone to really take full advantage. And not like these guys aren't great. Matthews scored, how many goals did he score? 69. Nice. There we go. Like,
I thought you knew, and
they still did quite well. I couldn't remember if he hit 70 or not. But it's not like they don't score. It's just that I think I would be perfectly fine to watch them trade Mitch Marner if in return for Mitch Marner they get a really good defenseman who can, like, help them do the puck moving. But to me, in that series, their biggest problem, aside from the fact that, like, Matthews missed games, Nylander had migraines.
Missed the first couple games.
Marner, I'm pretty sure, has been banged up. Like, that was a big problem. But the other big problem was that their transition game stunk. And there's a very easy way to deal with that. Get better defensemen.
And that's why I do not think, we talked about this a little last week, and, like, Mitch Marner is probably the last thing the Flyers need. I will say, though, for the price of one Mitch Marner, they could afford a Travis Sanheim,
Ooh.
and a Joel Farabee. This only makes sense in my mind
If Mitchkov is coming over.
If Mitchkov comes over.
Right.
Because then I want an elite guy to pair with him,
Right.
and then we give him a year to see if it works. And if it doesn't, like I'm also not signing him right away.
Oh.
I want to see if it works, and if it doesn't, cap space, cool. We can go buy someone else. We can trade him at the deadline, whatever. It doesn't make the most sense in the world, but like I've heard so many people say, like, what do they need? Well, what do I need to get out from under the Sanheim contract? I don't think it's the worst contract in the world. It's not like, oh, let's get rid of this dude. Like, I'm not trying to get rid of him. I'm just saying, I think you might be able to make an upgrade here, but it only makes sense with Mitchkov in my mind.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't think the Flyers are going to do that. I don't think they are really going to try.
I think Mitch Marner is the opposite of the kind of player they want.
But I will allow you your flights of fancy.
It's just a thought. I don't really even want to talk about the Rangers because I don't need a New York team having any more postseason success.
I was disappointed that they won, and I was surprised actually at how well they played.
Yeah.
They played well. Like they generally outplayed the Canes, which I was not expecting. That said, the Canes got outplayed in game 1 of that Isles series too. They won the game, but the Isles were the better team, and then the rest of that series, the Canes just beat them down. So we'll see how it plays out in game 2. It's also important to remember game 1 was in New York, so it's not like I was hoping the Canes would win game 1, but they didn't have to.
Yeah.
If they win game 2, they've stolen home ice. Game 1 was for the Rangers a need to have game, I feel like. For the Canes, it was a nice to have. Now the Canes, it puts pressure on them to win game 2, but they're not the home team. They don't need to win these games. They could just go back home and take care of business. So that series, far from over. I will say the Rangers looked better against them than I thought they were going to. This was not a game where Shesterkin stole it. He played well. He's a great goalie. But I thought the Rangers played a good 5-on-5 game, a much better 5-on-5 game than I expected them to.
We'll do that tomorrow. I want to do the Craig Berube thing before we get out of here. So there's a lot of chatter, like we just said. It's Toronto lost in the first round, so obviously some things are going to change. And after what Sheldon Keefe said about what was the quote? When teams play the Leafs, they set up the game basically so that they blow it. Like, everyone knows that we're going to blow it, and that's just how they play. Let's just sit back and wait for them to make a fucking mistake.
It had serious Terry Murray choking situation vibes. Same vibes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now the idea, like, I've heard the rumor, they're going to throw the Babcock contract at Berube, and heard the Devils are in on Berube, and there's a lot of Flyers fans be like, how bad would that suck?
Are we going to talk? We're going to talk Berube. Berube? Craig?
Yeah. Craig Berube.
Craig Berube?
There's like, okay, so maybe Ottawa's in, and it's like, is he really going to take the Ottawa job? Seems like he has his pick of jobs.
They've got talent.
They do. That might be the kind of team that he could take a next step with.
I don't think Ottawa is a terrible job, other than the fact that you have to deal with Ottawa.
At least it's not Melnick anymore.
Yes, exactly. So, like,
they
don't have the worst owner.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, there's so much Craig Berube talk. Is he a great coach?
So it's an interesting point you're bringing up, because when the Brind'Amour stuff kicked up, I tweeted out that, and it was more of like a thought experiment than anything else, but I basically was like, look, the reason why I don't think the Flyers are going to go nuts trying to throw a bunch of money at Brind'Amour and fire Torts, kick him upstairs to get Rod, which is what most of the online fans wanted them to do, which, like, fair, Brind'Amour rules. But the point I made on Twitter was, look at it this way. The Flyers for the last 5 months have been staring at a coach who is best friends with the president of hockey operations, who has won a Stanley Cup and is actually available, unlike Brind'Amour, who is not actually available. And they've been like, nah, we're good with Torts. And the response was always, well, Brind'Amour is so much better than Berube. And, like, I don't disagree in that, like, if I was starting a franchise from scratch and I could pick any coach, I would absolutely pick Rod Brind'Amour over Craig Berube. However, I get the sense that there are a lot of Flyers fans who really don't think Berube. It's not even that they don't think he's better than Brind'Amour. It's that they just don't think he's a good coach at all. And I don't think that's fair. I do think part of it is obviously because Berube coached here, because people found reasons to not like him because he coached here and the Flyers didn't win shit. They got to the playoffs that one time. Then he gets let go in large part because Hextall wanted to hire his own guy. Hextall comes in as GM. He has Berube as coach for 1 year. The team doesn't make the playoffs. It gives Hextall the excuse to bring in his own guy, which I'm not even giving Hextall criticism for that. I probably wouldn't hire Dave Hextall, but GM wants to go down with his own guy, not on the coach who he came in was already the coach. So I get it. But I don't think Craig Berube, I don't think Flyers fans, at least the online variety, are giving Craig Berube enough credit for the fact that, look, Brind'Amour is a great coach. Hasn't won shit as a
damn
coach.
Thing.
Craig Berube has won a Stanley Cup, and it's not just that he won a Stanley Cup. The St. Louis Blues are a clear outlier in terms of the teams that usually win cups. We've been talking about
We always point them out as the exception.
Yeah, we point them out as the exception. It's generally speaking, you need a McKinnon, you need a Crosby, you need an Ovechkin. You need at least an Eichel. The Blues are the one team. I remember Flyers fans in 2020 were screaming at me that the Flyers, the front office should not point to the Blues as their model because you can't that was an aberration. That was a 1-year thing. That doesn't usually happen. And that's very true. It doesn't usually happen. You don't usually win when your best players are Alex Pietrangelo, darn good number 1 defenseman, but not one of the 3 best defensemen in hockey.
No.
Yeah. Ryan O'Reilly, basically Sean Couturier. Darn good player. Love Ryan O'Reilly.
At that point, incredibly comparable.
He was very comparable to Sean Couturier. And then Vladimir Tarasenko, who wasn't even at peak Vladimir Tarasenko powers yet at that point. And you win a cup with those guys as your 3 best players. I don't think Craig Berube gets enough credit for the fact that might be the best playoff coaching job of the last 15 years when you account for the talent he had on that team. Cool, Jared Bednar. You won a cup with Nathan McKinnon. Neat.
I try not to hold against him what he did in Philly because as we know now, kind of a toxic group,
right? Just
in terms of the relationship with coaches, always went south. Every single time.
I mean, I'm not going to go that far, but I see where you're coming from.
I'm not saying they're a bunch of criminals. I'm just saying they turned on a bunch of coaches. A lot of dudes got fired in that span of time, including Peter Laviolette, who was awesome. A bunch of dudes. Yeah. I'm not really holding it against him because also coaches get better. Your first job is rarely your best job. He's clearly gotten better in that 2018-19 run. Maybe the best, let's call it the best coaching job anyone's ever done. Let's call it that. After that, 168, 113, 38. It's a 586 points percentage. It's all right. It's pretty good.
That's
fine.
It's
fine. Yeah.
It's not amazing, but it's fine.
Lost in the first round, lost in the second round, missed playoffs, fired after 28 games.
Yeah. Maybe that 2019 run was just a perfect storm, but I just think that my view is that it was miraculous that he had that Blues team playing that well, and I think he should get more credit for the degree of difficulty because that team did not have the type of star-level talent that generally accepted consensus you need to win a cup. That's the one team really since the Blackhawks dynasty that won without superstars. And I have to say that the coach deserves a lot of credit for that. And Berube, that was an amazing coaching job. Maybe that was just lightning in a bottle, maybe. But it's part of his resume, and it should not be. We should not diminish it and act like that was just an outlier.
That one doesn't count.
No, he did it, and it was an amazing job that he did it.
The thing on top of that kind of scares me away from coaches like him. How many coaches in all of sports win with more than one team?
It's a reasonable point.
No coach has ever won a Super Bowl with 2 different teams. In baseball, we have Sparky Anderson did it with the Reds and Tigers. Tony La Russa did it with the A's and Cards. In basketball, Phil Jackson, we know.
Of course.
Pat Riley, of course. Yeah. And then you go to some guy named Alex Hannum, who coached the 67 76ers as well as the 58 St. Louis Hawks. And then you get to hockey, Scotty Bowman, obviously. Of course. And then Dick Irvin in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Well, and then Tommy Gorman in the 30s and, in the 30s. It doesn't happen. Yeah. If I'm going to throw the bag at someone, it's more like a Brind'Amour, like guy who still needs to get there than the dude who probably doesn't have a chance to do it again.
I mean, now you're making the case as to why John Tortorella will never win a cup with the Flyers.
I never thought he would. I don't think he's going to be the coach when that time comes. All right, before we get out of here.
We have some comments here I actually want to quickly run through. Like HC, Ryan O'Reilly is elite. I don't care what anyone says. I think very highly of Ryan O'Reilly. I just think that the 2019-2020 version of Sean Couturier was basically Ryan O'Reilly, and that wasn't good enough.
No.
So, like, I think Ryan O'Reilly's great. I just think he was Sean Couturier. That was the value that he was providing, and they won with him. So there you go. Another one that I wanted to talk through. We had VNet Singh. The Blues were outshot something like 40-20 in Game 7 against the Bruins. Binnington was on a bender. He was. Binnington was certainly a big part of that. But if you go back and you look at the underlying metrics for Berube from January through the end of the year, that was not just Binnington playing really well. He was. They were also driving play. I remember it vividly. They were driving play like a top 5 team basically from the moment Berube took over. That was not just he was riding off the coattails of an unsustainably hot goalie. That was he got the benefit of an unsustainably hot goalie. Binnington's a fine goalie. He wasn't that good. But he also turned that team into a better than the sum of its parts play-driving machine from January through basically the end of the playoffs.
And Binnington was on one in the regular season, no doubt, 927 from the time he comes up, shuts out the Flyers, never looks back. Playoffs? 914, one shutout.
Yeah, like
he wasn't fucking J.S. Jaguar.
No, this was not this was not Tim Thomas in 2011.
Yeah, like he didn't just come in and like this is why they won. Like he was okay in the playoffs. He wasn't anything special. All right, before we get out of here, we are going to take a second to just chill. That's right. We're going to choose chill. This is happening tomorrow, fam. It's that draft lottery, that 5% chance, and all we need is a chance, but there's a really good chance that we're going to need to chill out afterwards. We're going to be disappointed over something that was probably never going to happen. And when we need to chill, there's no better way to chill than with an ice cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about who the next coach could possibly be, are they going to go out and get a different coach? Is it going to be Torts or the draft lottery odds or who they should take at number 2? Whatever it is, you need to find the Blue Mountains in the back of your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies. Because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, sometimes you just got to chill. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. One last thing. One more simulator, Bryn. This is the one. Hey, I'm feeling it. We're going to go out with the Flyers picking second.
Nah, still 12.
All right. They didn't fall.
One more, Bryn.
One more.
Right. Please not that one. Do not give New Jersey the second overall pick.
Oh my God.
That would be horrifying.
At least we didn't
like the Devils need another top 2 pick.
At least we didn't knock them down to 13 or 14. We're going to run this a few times again tomorrow. Until then, thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Search Broad Street Hockey. Search PHLY Flyers wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, right here on YouTube, set those reminders. Never miss a live show. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. Thank you very much to our sponsor, Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY. Start your home buying process today. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same channel, 1 p.m., me and Charlie. That'll do it for us. Have a great week, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.